Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Wynna Wong. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. China defends its decision to conduct war games around Taiwan following Nancy Pelosi's visit to the island. New COVID cases in Hong Kong climb above 5,000 as the authorities fend off criticism about compassionate hospital visits. And at least 30 people have been admitted to hospital with suspected malaria. China has kicked off its unprecedented war games around Taiwan, one day after U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's controversial visit to the island. This comes as the Biden administration tries to apply the brakes on a bill that could ramp up Sino-U.S. tensions. Chloe Feng reports.
It started at noon today, a large-scale air and naval joint exercise in 6 no-entry zones. Beijing deems the drills as an effective blockade of Taiwan's major ports and main military bases. The military maneuvers will run until Sunday, with mainland forces crossing the median line dividing the Taiwan Strait several times. According to the People's Liberation Army, precision strikes were conducted in specific areas at the eastern end of the strait this afternoon. Long-range rockets were launched along with conventional missile tests, which were reported to have accurately hit their targets. The PLA said it lifted what it called relevant controls on sea and airspace after the live-fire training mission, which it declared a success. Taiwan confirmed that Beijing launched several Dongfeng series missiles and condemned what it described as irrational actions that threaten regional peace. A drone was reported last night flying over King Mon, a group of islands governed by Taiwan roughly 10 kilometers east to the mainland city of Xiamen. Taiwanese forces, which are in a state of combat readiness, fired warning flares. It was the first time a drone was spotted in the sensitive area since the 1950s. Taiwan media, quoting military officials, said the PLA's drill zones will be expanded to 7 and last until Monday. As regional tensions escalated, Bloomberg reported that the Biden administration is lobbying Democratic senators to delay a bill which could change U.S. policy towards Taiwan. The proposal includes designating Taiwan as a major non-NATO ally, providing the island with security aid worth $4.5 billion and supporting its participation in international organizations. The bill is sponsored by Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Bob Menendez and Republican Lindsey Graham, both harsh critics of China. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi says the military exercises off Taiwan are necessary to safeguard national sovereignty and security. Speaking at a meeting of foreign ministers from the Southeast Asian group ASEAN, Wang again condemned Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan, calling it a violation of bilateral agreements. He accused the United States of being the biggest troublemaker when it comes to regional security. Wang added that Beijing made strong diplomatic efforts to avert a cross-strait crisis and would never allow its core interests to be undermined. Nancy Pelosi is now in South Korea, meeting top political leaders. They included her Korean counterpart, National Assembly Speaker Kim Jin-pyo. Pelosi highlighted Washington's desire to advance security, the economy, and governance in an interparliamentary way. She and her delegation are expected to travel to Japan next.
In an interparliamentary way.
Locally, the hospital authority has defended its compassionate visit arrangements after they allegedly caused an outbreak at Wang Tai-sin Hospital. Authorities also called for heightened vigilance after daily COVID infections surpassed 5,000 for the first time since April. Raymond Young reports.
From this week, no visitor can enter public hospitals without a negative PCR test result. Exceptions will only be made for people whose family and friends are about to pass away. But the arrangement is now suspected to have caused an outbreak at Wang Yi Hospital. Compassionate visits were granted for a 94-year-old female patient whose condition worsened on Tuesday. All visitors had tested negative through RAT kits, but after the visit, one of them returned a positive result from a PCR exam. That set off alarm bells, and upon COVID screening, the elderly patient and 3 others from the tuberculosis and chest ward were found to be infected. The 94-year-old patient died this morning. Hospital Authority Chief Manager Lau Ka-hin insisted it was too early to conclude that the patients were infected by the visitors. But he confirmed compassionate visits will continue, as it was important for the family members to see their loved ones. There was more cause for concern today after total cases in Hong Kong surpassed 5,000 for the first time in 4 months. Of the 5,020 infections, 247 were imported. Authorities also urged infected patients to make use of designated COVID clinics, which are only operating at 50% capacity. Raymond Yang, HKIBC.
Sinovac jabs against COVID are now available for children aged between 6 months and 3 years old. But parents who prefer BioNTech for their children will have to wait. Janice Lowe reports.
Starting today, children as young as 6 months can receive a Sinovac jab. Online bookings opened this morning at 9 a.m., and within 30 minutes, about 150 parents had reserved a slot for children aged between 6 months and 3 years old. Parents can also take their toddlers directly to community vaccination centers for a jab. This woman, who brought her 2-year-old son for a jab in To Kwa Wan, said the vaccination can protect him from COVID when he takes public transport and mixes with his classmates and friends in school. She is less worried about the possible side effects compared with the benefits.
I'm quite encouraged, actually, and I believe in the days to come there will be more parents arranging for vaccination of their children.
Young added that kindergartens have been lining up for outreach service for children in the next week. The minimum age requirement for BioNTech stays at 5, as the government is still discussing with vaccine manufacturers to get jabs suitable for toddlers. 2 children under 3 have died from COVID in Hong Kong's 5th wave. Janice Lowe, HKIBC.
At least 30 people who arrived from Africa have been admitted to hospital with suspected malaria. Some were taken to the intensive care unit. Sources say a few dozen people in various quarantine hotels have been reporting gastrointestinal symptoms. They are all apparently colleagues who worked on a Chinese railway project. Malaria is rare in Hong Kong, with most cases being imported. It's a serious and sometimes fatal disease, commonly spread by mosquitoes. Symptoms include fever, fatigue, and headache. Customs officers have expressed concern over tactics adopted by cigarette smugglers. This follows a series of raids during which cigarettes worth $160 million were seized. Kelly Pang reports.
Customs officers raided 6 places in the New Territories late last month and seized 57 million illicit cigarettes worth $160 million. Most of the cigarettes were found in a container terminal in Yuen Long and in car parks in Cheng Yi and Tuen Mun. An unemployed man and a transport worker were arrested. In an attempt to evade detection, syndicates are storing illicit cigarettes in remote areas, according to Customs. The latest raids came days after officers confiscated $270 million worth of illicit cigarettes, in the biggest seizure in 21 years. It's believed that 30% of the cigarettes are destined for Southeast Asia, since the brands are not common in Hong Kong. Senior investigator Wang Yi said the amount of illicit cigarettes seized so far this year is 37% higher than for the same period in 2021. As of July 31st, Customs confiscated 330 million cigarettes, valued at over $900 million. Kelly Payne, HKIBC.
The United Nations has branded oil companies as immoral for making massive profits at a time when many people are struggling to survive. This came as oil producers agreed to a minimal increase in output, despite a charm offensive by U.S. President Joe Biden. An extra 100,000 barrels a day. That's all. The meager amount was decided by OPEC oil exporting countries and their partners, including Russia. The increase, which is only around 0.1% of global demand, is so tiny that analysts say it's meaningless. Some also see it as a slap in the face for U.S. President Joe Biden. He visited OPEC's most influential member, Saudi Arabia, last month to press for higher output in an attempt to bring down oil prices. The U.S. leader was criticized for the visit, especially after his earlier denunciation of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman over the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. It's also being read as a slight to Biden after imposing sanctions on Russia for invading Ukraine. In New York, the head of the United Nations had some stern words for energy companies.
It is immoral for oil and gas companies to be making record profits from this energy crisis on the back of the poorest people and communities and at a massive cost to the climate. And I urge people everywhere to send a clear message to the fossil fuel industry and their financiers that this grotesque greed is punishing the poorest and most vulnerable people while destroying our only common home, the planet.
Oil prices saw an uptick following the OPEC decision, after falling to an almost 6-month low. Hong Kong's main stock benchmark climbed to a 2-week high today, boosted by tech stocks. The Hang Seng Index wrapped up the day with a gain of 2%. JD.com led the tech rally, jumping 5.5%, while Alibaba advanced 5.1% ahead of the release of its earnings report. After the market closed, Alibaba said revenue in the quarter that ended in June came in at 205 billion yuan, the slowest growth pace in 8 years. Wharf Real Estate Investment Company was one of the best performers, rising 6.6% after it increased its dividends. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed up 406 points. Top 10 active stocks, Tencent was up $9.40, Alibaba up $4.65. JD up $12.80, AIA up $1.90. Finally, the weather. It will be cloudy with showers and squally thunderstorms. Temperatures will range between 26 and 29 degrees. More rain on Saturday before the sun shows up on Sunday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Wynna Wong. Good night.